swinging a drive, right field and deep. Back goes Aquino. It's got a chance. Gone. Get out the tape measure. Long gone.
Fly the W!
Cubs fans, it's time to fly the W with Dustin Rhodes and Paul Crawly Jean.
All right, Crawly, you're listening to the Fly the W podcast, part of the Blue Wire Network. This is episode 337. Jed and Craig meet the media. Don't forget to listen, download, subscribe, most importantly, review the podcast. Follow all the socials. You can check out what I'm up to on Mully and Haw on X.
You can catch me at Crawly's Cubs on X, Blue Sky, and TikTok. Crawly's Clubhouse on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Threads. You can email us at crawlysclubhouse@gmail.com.
All right, Crawly, yesterday, the boys, the pitchers and catchers, and a lot of other guys, as we learned, are already out there. But yesterday was Jed Hoyer and the president of baseball operations turn to meet the media, along with Carter Hawkins, along with Craig Consell, along with selected players. So we are going to tap into some of that audio and put it through the Fly the W filter, if you will.
Yeah, segment one, we're going to take a look at the president of baseball ops. That's Jed Hoyer. And then in the second segment, we'll break down a little bit more about what the skipper had to say. As usual, Jed is looking dapper out in Mesa, Arizona, with his nice pullover on, ready to go. And Dustin, I mean, you know, it went from really negative to really positive last year for Jed. You know, there's questions. You remember that his contract was up. He signed one right around the All-Star break. And, you know, it turned out that things worked out really well. The Cubs had a good second half. You saw them make it to the postseason. And from there, you know, coming within one game of the NLCS. So, you know, now he's had what I would argue is a pretty successful offseason. So I feel like it's like a real, you know, as far as, you know, I don't know about locally, but as far as nationally, I think the arrow's pointing up on Jed Hoyer, wouldn't you say?
I would think so. Yep. He got an extension as well, right? So deservedly so. I think he's had a very nice offseason.
And, you know, one of those things that he did this offseason was really focus on arms, lots and lots of arms. And if you take a look here, you know, this is kind of showing some of the different deals that ended up happening on this here. You got guys like Edward Cabrera, Shota got the qualifying offer, Hunter Harvey, Phil Maton, re-signed Caleb Thielbar, Holby Milner, Jacob Webb, arms, Dustin. And I think that's really going to be an important part of it. And I think for me, he had some interesting quotes about, he's had some interesting quotes about all these new pitchers, especially the starters here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something we're excited about. But ultimately, like, I think the depth is the piece that we focus on as much as anything. Is just making sure, you know, I felt like, you know, last year, if you kind of look at the way that the end of the season went and the postseason, it felt like we got thin from a starting pitching standpoint, and like that was a big focus of the offseason, is making sure we had enough. You know, we brought Imanaga back. We did a new deal with Colin Ray. You know, we traded for Cabrera. Like, continuing to add these arms, because you don't know how things are going to play out, and you got to make sure you have enough arms. So the focus on, you know, what the five guys is sort of less than like, how do we make sure we have enough arms to give guys rest? How do we have enough arms to withstand injuries?
That was really, Dustin, a huge part of the year last year. And you're looking at this and you're saying, okay, think about it. You had Justin Steele go down early. You had Imanaga have injury issues in May, and then he ended up falling apart at the end of the season. Jamison Tyone was on the IL a couple times. You had to call Cade Horton up. He got injured in the right before the postseason of all the times to get injured. And then you had Matthew Boyd, who hadn't pitched this much since 2019. And that pitching staff was running on fumes. That's why you had to go with Matthew Boyd in game one against Milwaukee on short rest. I mean, they were desperate.
Oh my gosh, were they desperate? Yeah. And again, you can never, ever, 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 Crawly, have too many good quality arms in a team. Never. Can't have enough. No. It's kind of like defensive tackles in football or cornerbacks.
Yeah, and for me, I think about the matter of, okay, now you had a postseason where you put a lot of miles on some of these arms, you put a lot of innings on there, and they're stressful innings, right? And so as we kind of take a look at this right here, how is Boyd going to bounce back after not throwing more innings than he has since 2019?
Great question. Plus, Crawly, and I'm okay with it, but just it's part of the conversation. Plus, he's going to the World Baseball Classic.
Correct. And then you had Justin Steele, he's not going to be ready to go on day one. Cade, that was the most innings he ever pitched. And he's had some injury history, and Tyone was on the IL a couple of times. So you worry a little bit, but I feel like that they've tried to do everything they can to buffer themselves a little bit from another situation where you just run out of arms. I mean, we've seen it with the Dodgers the last few years too, they've had to go way deep into their pitching because of the amount of guys that they've had injured. So like you said, you could never have too much pitching. And, even though there was a lot of off-season arms being brought in, the one guy that gets the biggest buzz is going to be Alex Bregman. And he's already kind of making a really big impact on his teammates. Here's what Jed had to say about that.
Bregman's press conference, you mentioned the steps he was already taking to get to know the minor league staff, get to know his teammates. What have you seen in the month since of how he's continued that process of kind of already getting his fingerprints on?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that's something he's really, really focused on, and it's really fun to watch. That obviously he's worried about his own performance, but he was in the coach's room yesterday looking at different players and talking to them about, like, okay, what are you trying to work on? What can I reinforce? I know Matt Shaw was hitting in his complex here. I think during January, so he's already taking those steps. And I think he does it in the right way. That, like, he's going to work with our staff. Like, what are the things you're working on? What can I help? But it's rare to have a player that invested in helping to make young guys better, and I think you'll see it in various ways. But it's a kind of a wonderful quality that he has, and it's something that people of the Astros talk about and people of the Red Sox talk about, and it's something he's earned.
I mean, how cool is that? Yeah, like to literally go in the coaching staff and talk to them. Hey, what do you guys need? And Ken Rosenthal has an interesting piece out in The Athletic that I want to dive in more next time we talk. But just literally like his memory of what he's seen from pitchers and the way he breaks the game down. People talk about Alex Bregman. He is a baseball rat, right? And very similar to Kyle Schwarber, who absolutely like just lives, eats, breathes, sleeps baseball, thinks about it 24/7 and just kind of getting out there. And this is like a guy that's going to be like a coach. You remember how much everybody leaned on Justin Turner last year, right? And oh my God, Justin Turner's not here. What are we going to do? Justin Turner was a great player in his day, but his best days were very far behind him. I feel like, bringing in Alex Bregman now, who he is still a very, very good player. He's not as good as he once was, but bringing him in is going to really help a lot with younger players. And I'm sure some veterans too, just to kind of talk things out, talk baseball. What are you seeing? He reminds me of one of those guys that just like just Andre Dawson used to talk about before they used to have the advanced analytics and the stats. Dawson used to have his own little notebook with his own little notes. And from what I'm hearing, that's Alex Bregman. He has a mental notes on all sorts of people, how to, and I think that just having that to tap into, especially with young guys like Michael Busch, with Matt Shaw, with PCA, having all these young guys in there. This is, and I heard he's, bilingual, can speak English, can speak Spanish. This is a guy that is going to be, the second he retires, he's going to turn around and go right into coaching.
Yep.
And that's the thing, is that the way that he breaks down some of these technical issues with players is really something that's been talked about with Houston and talked about with Boston. So it's good to hear Jed talking about that right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's legit. Everything you said is spot on, Crawly. Everything.
And, one guy that you hope, that okay, we talked about Justin Turner. PCA really leaned on him a lot. And PCA really was that breakout star in the first half, but he struggled in the second half. Here's what Jed had to say about Pete Crow Armstrong and the steps he has to take, Dustin, to get to, that next level that we would like to see from PCA.
What's the next step for PCA offensively, developmentally, to do to reach that consistency that you see?
Just, I think the swing decisions. I mean, obviously he's gifted power-wise. I think he's pretty gifted from a hand-eye coordination-wise. I think I think his maturation, and it's not going to happen in one spring training, but his maturation, just making better swing decisions. I think that's how he gets to the next step, and it's exciting because he's already such a dynamic player. If he can make that one last step or kind of improve that, I think the sky's the limit. But I think that in a simplest form, I think that would be number one, is the swing decisions.
That's really interesting that he brings that up, Dustin, the swing decisions. And there's just a couple things that you're looking at PCA and you're still kind of wondering, he's still young. You know what I mean? Like last year to me was his first real full season, right? Right. And so when you take a look at it pre All-Star game, I mean, this kid was just absolutely on fire. I mean, 21 doubles, 25 home runs in the first half, Dustin, pre All-Star game, slashing 265, 302, 554 slug. He earned that All-Star game spot, and all that while arguably being one of the best defenders in the game.
Oh, like absolutely. I mean, his glove, Crawly, come on, second to none.
But when you talk about the second half, 16 doubles, that went down, 6 home runs as opposed to 25, slashing 216, 262, 372. So he definitely had his struggles in the second half, and there's been a lot of stuff written about it, just about him overstriding, which in turn elongated his swing, and that made him late on the fastball. So now he's late on the fastball, and now he's chasing or missing the soft stuff. And so there's just a question of, okay, now here you are, right? You had that first half. You see what the potential is. And again, no one expects him to be a 30-plus home run guy. I mean, if you really got that out of PCA.
Yeah, that was also crazy, right? I mean, the third.
It was out of control. He does have the power. He does have power. But again, if you can sit there and if you're telling me you're a 275 hitter with 20 home runs and 30, 40 doubles, you'll take that every day from PCA. So it's just trying to limit the highs and the lows. You may not have that first half, but if you can just kind of keep things steady, he is just going to be, again, is he going to be a really good player, or is he going to be an all-star caliber player? That's what we're looking at with PCA and what the next steps he's going to take, swing decisions, making sure he's making the right decisions. But again, keeping his mechanics in check and not trying too hard. That if you're struggling a little bit, don't try to go too hard into it and trying to do too much. Take it easy, work your way back out of it, but you don't have to try to kind of do too much, which I think PCA just has a burning competitive desire. And you just got to kind of temper that some days, because Dustin, that baseball is a game of failure, and that's going to happen.
Yeah,
and
30%, right? 30%,
right.
You're a Hall of Famer, right? You hit the ball 30% of the time, you're a Hall of Famer.
Right. And that's just the thing with PCA, is just kind of relax. Don't get worked up too much. Don't get too frustrated. And you see it sometimes when he gets mad, when he strikes out, when he pops up, or when he slams his helmet down, or, bat down. It's just trying to get him more on an even keel and keep him where he needs to be mechanically. On the last episode, Dustin, we talked about all the Cubs participating, and you just mentioned the WBC. You mentioned Matt Boyd. PCA is another guy that's going to be in there. 13 players in total, including a number of everyday players and prospects. Does Jed think that this is going to be hurtful or helpful for the Cubs to have these guys playing in the WBC?
I don't think it's a disadvantage. I think from a fan standpoint, it makes for a fun spring for all of us. I think getting to watch these games, I think the WBC is great that way. I think in camp it gives us a lot of opportunity for minor league players, minor league free agents to really show stuff. So I think if you want to look at it as a disadvantage, you can, but I think you look at it the other way, and it gives opportunity. And like I said, I think we're all going to enjoy watching it. So I think the better you get as a team, probably the more players you have, and I guess I take it as a compliment that the different countries want our players.
Great way to look at it. Great way to address it.
Yep, and you take a look here. We got PCA, who's going to be on there, Alex Bregman, Miguel Amaya, all of these guys that are going to be there. And what he mentioned was it gives other players an opportunity to get more playing time. So if PCA is in spring training at some point in time, because the Cubs have to make a decision on who their backup outfielder is, right? So that gives more guys more opportunities for more at-bats. When you're talking about Alex Bregman being at the WBC, Matt Shaw can work on third, and then who else? Who else are you kind of looking at that there? So I think that there's just, there's going to be some advantages, and not every team is going to make it as far as, there's certain teams, the DR. We're going to break down to WBC as we get closer to it, but there's a lot of teams that aren't going to make it as far as, say, Team USA, Team Japan, the Dominican Republic. So some of these guys are going to be coming back earlier than others. But again, opportunities there, opportunities for players to make an impression, opportunities to get coached up a little bit. So we'll see what happens there. But I'm definitely trying to look at it from the positive. And as somebody that does like the WBC, I am excited to see what happens and how the Cubs players in particular perform. And it's not just the Cubs players on this team, but former Cubs. You know what I mean? There's a ton of former Cubs out there too that we're going to talk about. I'm going to hold off and tell you about the Team Italy infield, Dustin. I think it's going to be an infield that you're just going to it's going to turn your stomach a little bit, but it's going to be fun to kind of take a look, because not only are there Cubs all over the WBC that are on this current team, there's a bunch of former Cubs on here. So it'll be fun to take a look at. Now, Dustin, the Cubs have two starters that are in their final year in their contracts, in Jameson Taillon and Shota Imanaga, and Matthew Boyd has a mutual option after this season. So if he has a really, really successful season, he may have to try to opt out and try to make that big money, right? And so how does Jed going to kind of plan to address all of this stuff moving forward, as far as all of these guys coming up at very similar times and seeing what happens?
Yeah, I think you're always looking at that. And I think, we do have both on the position player level and pitching level, we have a lot of free agents. I think that's it's going to be a topic of conversation. There's no question with those free agents. I think we look at it as players need to be, to focus on right now, focus on this team. But yeah, we're always thinking about, okay, what does the rotation look like, going forward? How many starters do we have? I think we've tried to build up real depth from a starting standpoint this year. And we still have a number of young starting pitchers that we're really excited about that I think can take a big step forward this year. So we do have 3 free agent starters. But I think that's something that we'll continue to discuss throughout the spring and throughout the season. But I think having that next wave take a step forward, I think will be really helpful and something that's a big priority.
So as he kind of mentions there, they do have a lot of young starters. Ben Brown was pitching against PCA. Our friend Josh Friedman had a great video of that today, that kind of matchup. Javier Assad, Jordan Wicks, who we talked about with our friend Rich Piestefeld on the last episode. So they do, is it that next wave? Edward Cabrera, that's what made him so attractive. That's what made you give up Owen Casey, is to get a guy that you have 3 seasons under control. So, I think it's that mix of Cabrera and hoping one of those young studs comes in and takes that next step into being an everyday starter. And so, like I said, for me, Ben Brown, Jordan Wicks, Javier Assad, all guys that, you're looking at back of the rotation type talent there, right?
Yep.
All righty. And so as we take a look here, the Cubs did not win the NL Central last season, but made their first postseason since 2018. I'm not counting 2020 because that was just silly. That's silly baseball, Dustin.
Got
silly
an asterisk.
baseball.
You got an asterisk by that one, huh?
I got an asterisk on that. I'm going to say 2018 on that one. But what are the expectations for the Cubs in 2026?
I don't know to compare it, but I know the expectations are high, which I think is great. That's what you want. I think the excitement in camp is palpable. I think the players are talking about it. The coaches are talking about it. I think that they're excited about our team. They're excited about our group, both from a talent standpoint, also from just a camaraderie standpoint. I think they, so many of the guys were here last year, and I think they feel like we had a really good season, but there's unfinished business. And I think that in a lot of ways, that's the best kind of spring training, when there's a hunger. And so I think that the expectations don't create anxiety. I think they create hunger with this group, and I think this group's excited to get started.
This picture, if you're watching on Crawly's Cubs YouTube channel right here, I was there when that picture was taken. I was right behind home plate, actually. This is right after the wild card win with San Diego. I know Steve Scher's listening right now, and he was with me at that game. And then it felt like the Cubs were kind of clicking there. They went to Milwaukee. They lost the first two. Then all of a sudden just had an amazing 2 games at Wrigley, some of the most electric baseball that's been played at Wrigley probably since 2017, at least, definitely maybe even 2016. But when they lost that last game to Milwaukee, Dustin, there was a lot of bittersweet feelings. There was a lot of guys that just felt like we weren't done. We have unfinished business. And that's what Jed is kind of talking about carrying into this off season or this spring training, is that you feel it. It's palpable. These guys felt like they should have gone further, and they're looking here to finish the job this season. And I like that. I like that. It reminds me very much of 2015, Dustin, when they made it all the way to the NLCS, got swept by the Mets. And there was just that feeling like they weren't done, and they were disappointed, and they wanted to come back and show that there was more in that team. And I'm not saying that the Cubs are going to win the World Series this year, but I have a feel, there is that hunger, there is that desire to get back into that postseason and show what they can do.
Absolutely. And you want that, right? That's a good thing. Nothing wrong with that. You want that good taste. And this, I think it was also important to get to where they got to, right? That was important as well.
Yeah. And when we talk right now, coming up in this segment number 2, I mean, the skipper is going to address those very sentiments you're talking about, Dustin.
You are listening to the Fly the W podcast, to be part of the Blue Wire Network. It is episode 337. Jed and Craig meet with the media. In this segment, as Crawly mentioned, we're going to be hearing from Craig Consell. Don't forget to listen, download, review, and subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. 5-star reviews, we'll take them. You can email us also, Crawly's Clubhouse @gmail.com. And don't forget, you can watch us on Crawly's Clubhouse YouTube page. Jed was not the only one talking on Wednesday. The skipper, Craig Consell, met with the beat writers as well.
Yep, there we go. We got a little bit of Craig Consell audio, which of course always gets everybody super excited. So, Skipper, tell us, please, about the first days of spring training.
We're all excited to get started. I think, I think everybody works really hard to create a team like this. So this is, it's a bit ceremonial. Obviously, nothing crazy is happening today, but it's fun to get at least the first group of pitchers and catchers started, have a good day, and build a foundation for a great season.
We got our first Craig Consell. Do you think anyone talks to him about that, or did you just think no one really kind of cares?
No, I don't think anybody cares. Unfortunately.
The sighing and the heavy breath. I don't think he was even being frustrated about it. I don't know what it is tick wise on it. So, all right, we got the foundation, but Dustin, there was a minor hiccup on the first day of pitchers and catchers reporting.
We have some visa issues, Assad, Ballesteros, Bethancourt, all expected shortly, but not here today.
And our friend Scotty Changoni, the photographer for Marquee and all that, just a great guy, great follow on Twitter. Javier Assad, Dustin, is in camp.
Yay!
So there was some visa issues. Bethancourt and Ballesteros and Assad were stuck. Assad, Mexico. I know Bethancourt is Panama. I'm trying to remember where Ballesteros, I want to say Dominican. I might be wrong on that, but definitely, 3 guys that were dealing with those issues. And again, those are 3 guys, especially Assad and for Moises, this is, for him, not a big deal really just yet. Cause technically the hitters aren't expected to be in yet as pitchers and catchers. So it's more a thing for Assad and Bethancourt. Assad at least knows his way around the facility, stuff like that. Bethancourt, as much, but as Steve said, better to have visa issues than injury issues. So I agree with Steve on that one. That'll definitely take that
100%.
Now, questions start coming fast and furious to our guy, Craig Consell. And one of the questions that he is going to ask Dustin is the opening day starter.
If it's April 1st, is Horton your opening day starter?
Yeah, no, there's no opening day starters. Yeah.
That was a quick one. Bruce, our guy Bruce Levine, who's always joining the Mully and Haw show and inside the clubhouse and all sorts of fun things, asked, is Cade Horton? So I've seen mock rotations and stuff, having Cade as the righty and then going with the lefty and then Cabrera righty and then, another lefty. I don't know just yet, Dustin, but I got to ask you specifically, if it was up to you, who is your opening day starter? Give it today, February 12th. We got plenty of time, but when you talk about opening day starter, usually is your best starter. It's usually got like a symbolic thing, sometimes it's kind of like, okay, who's the guy that's kind of been around, those type of things. Is there anyone that you think is a standout opening day starter in your mind?
I don't know that it's a slam dunk, but I might go a little bit off of who the best pitcher is right now. I don't know that I would necessarily, if you're asking me, it's a must-win game. It's game 7 of the NLCS. I think I might give it to Jameson Taillon.
Okay, Jameson Taillon. All right.
Because Cade Horton hopefully will have many more opportunities. JMO is a stand-up guy. And I think that might be the way to go. What do you think?
If it was up to me, I think I'd go with Matthew Boyd. I think he was really.
Now, the only reason I didn't say Matthew Boyd is I don't know where he's going to be at from a starting standpoint in the WBC.
Right. And so for me, I think I'm going to go with Boyd. I think he'll be ready to go opening day. That first couple times in the rotation anyway, they don't get these guys going more than 4 or 5 innings anyway. Mm-hmm. And that's where the depth and the young guys with the options and the depth and all those things are going to come into it. But I think Matthew Boyd, last year just was the guy that the Cubs needed him to be. I think he really, I would say he would deserve it. You know what I mean? Like normally you'd say if Justin Steele was ready, would you go with Justin Steele as being, one of the longest tenured guys as far as the rotation? But JMO's not a bad choice. I think I'm just going to stick with Boyd though but interesting that Bruce brings up Cade Horton, right? To me, I'd like to kind of make sure that we take a little pressure off him. You know what I mean?
I don't disagree with that at all. Yep.
Just let's pump the brakes on the Cade Horton Express. We all love Cade. We all think he's great, but let's not go crazy here. Let's kind of, see what happens. But Dustin, there, as we talked about earlier in segment 1, whole lot of new arms, especially in the bullpen for Craig Consell to deal with. How does he see this all playing out?
Yeah, I think to a certain extent that's always how it's going to be. But it's a pretty established group with the players that we signed. I don't think we're thinking about a lot of new things necessarily. They're good at what they do. We know what they're going to do. I think prioritizing their health over the course of the spring is job number 1, and the foundation of being healthy. There's always going to be surprises on that area of your team. That's how the area of your team is going to work.
Yeah, this is, again, we talked a little bit about the different acquisitions and a lot of those guys being, guys that are in the bullpen. And so the question is who's in the circle of trust? Who's in the trust tree, right? How's he going to kind of work this? And these things have a way of working them out. Nobody on opening day thought that Brad Keller and Drew Pomerantz were going to have the seasons that they did with the Cubs. So, you have some guys that, are new. Obviously, a lot of people are really high on Hunter Harvey. There's a lot of talk. If that guy can stay healthy, just absolutely a different maker. but having Hobie Milner, Haverfield Matten, Thielbar back, you know that he's definitely in the trust tree as far as Craig Consell is concerned. So there are guys that he is going to use that, and guys that he feels comfortable with. And again, we talked about it with Rich last time. How are we going to kind of take a look at this as far as, is Ben Brown going to be one of those guys that's going to pitch 2-3 innings, or is he going to pitch one? Is Luke Little going to take a step forward? These are guys that this is what spring training, especially with the Cubs team as established as it is, these are the things that you're looking at. Who's your bench? Who's your bullpen? How is it going to play out? If you remember last year with Brad Keller, when all of a sudden he's in spring training and all of a sudden he's about 2-3 miles per hour with a little bit more giddy up on the fastball, that's when people were just kind of like, oh, wait, what's that? What's going on here? And that allowed you to kind of keep your options open. So I am excited. But Dustin, we did have some news. He did have one thing he was able to tell us about the bullpen.
If it was April 1st tomorrow, would Palencia get the 9th inning?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
About Daniel Palencia being the closer?
Right.
He's done it. He has experience. I'm not.
No, I don't mean that. I mean the timing. I just feel like he did that so he doesn't have to answer that question every day.
I'm sure that there's something to that. And again, what does Craig keep talking about? Outgetters. Who are my outgetters, right? And eventually you can kind of mix and match and move things around. You saw how he did that in the postseason. But it's not like Daniel Palencia hasn't closed games before, right?
Yeah, he's been there, done that, right?
Right. But if you remember 2023, you had Adbert Alzolay closing a bunch of games. And then all of a sudden in 2024, things went really south with that. So, Daniel Palencia, you hope stays healthy. You hope that he takes another step forward. But you never know. Whoever your opening day closer is, that doesn't necessarily, think about all the opening day closers we've had in the last God knows how many years, right? I don't even know. Wade Davis was probably the last guy I can think of that consistently, 2017 type thing, that kind of beginning to end type thing where that was your closer and you knew it was. But Craig Consell doesn't want to answer these type of questions about bullpen because he doesn't know the answers yet, right?
No,
but
he doesn't know yet. He can't know.
No, one of the biggest challenges that Craig Consell is going to face is trying to find Matt Shaw playing time. And so this is what Craig said addressing whether Shaw is a big league hitter or not.
Yeah, I think Matt is a major league hitter. I think his second half of the season demonstrates that. So he had a very good second half of the season. He had a season that you anticipate young players having, where the league tells you have to make some adjustments. Can you make them on the fly? He did that very well. So the part of is it too much on his plate? I think kind of what you're asking. That's all how you frame it. I think everybody has a lot on their plate in a different way. Matt's got a fun challenge ahead of him. That's how I see it, and I think that's how he sees it.
So when you talk about Matt Shaw, he brings up a lot of good points. And again, this is going to be a challenge. He's going to have to, be moving around, and that's not easy, trying to learn to field a new position. If he's going to be playing some right field, is he going to be DHing? Who knows? But, when you talk about Shaw's season last year, and Rich talked about this on the last episode, he's a grinder. He's a worker, right? Just tell me what the assignment is and let me get working on it. And you remember, he really, as Craig Consell talked about, the league is going to find out how to get you out and are you able to make adjustments? And so when you talk about Matt Shaw's numbers pre-All-Star game /198, 276, 280 with 2 homers, post All-Star game, he jumped his average up almost 60 points, Dustin, to 258. 317. He slugged 522, 11 home runs, Dustin. In the second half, he became a much, much better hitter. We saw a video of that our friend John Antonoff took. And there's more video coming out. If you're watching Matt Shaw lowering that leg kick, a different looking swing, all sorts of different things going on. So this is the tough thing. If you're a young guy like this and you just lost your spot, your position, you're going to have to do what you're going to have to do. Try to make it so that, you make the most of the opportunities that you get. What are your thoughts about Matt Shaw for this season?
I like it. I mean, listen, you're not going to play him at third too much, right? Unless, God forbid, somebody gets hurt.
Yeah. And that somebody would be your big free agent signing. So
correct.
That hopefully he can, but again, it's a good insurance policy to have. A big question for Craig in 2026 is, how does Shota Imanaga bounce back from the struggles at the end of the season? And Dustin, we talked about this he talked about the word failure. Like he saw himself as a failure at the end of the season. And when it came down to a very, very important game, he didn't get the ball in the postseason.
He did not get the ball. He didn't even get a sniff. He didn't even get a sniff, Crawly.
They gave him that shot in game 2. He gave up that big 3-run home run, and then that was it. He wasn't coming back out for game 4. He wasn't coming back out for game 5. And so this is what Consell said about Shota Imanaga.
Yeah, I mean, there was not. It's all very subtle. Like it's not. It doesn't have to be a big thing. I think that's the difficulty of Major League Baseball, is that these guys are at a level where the difference between success and struggle is very tiny, and the adjustments they're small, and also sometimes like that's why you think you can fix yourself like immediately, but it's just the subtle things like can get you off track, and sometimes you need to step back a little bit to see that, right? And I think as much as anything, Shota probably needed a little bit of time to be able to step back a little bit, and that gives you some clarity as much as anything. I'm very excited for Shota to have an outstanding season. I really think, look, this is he is going to respond kind of to the things that happened at the end of the year, and he wasn't happy how he pitched. That's what great competitors do. They respond to things like that, and he will absolutely respond, and I'm very confident in that.
So, Dustin, I thought it was interesting on some of those quotes that he was talking about, it can be something little. We were wondering, was he tipping pitches? Was he injured? And maybe It wasn't anything. Maybe it was something little that just kind of snowballed and got out of his control. And we saw last year at different times when guys were struggling, Craig Consell pull some different levers, right? Like getting an opener maybe, or giving a guy a rest, those type of things were things that he did. But when you're talking about when Shota started to struggle, that was the trouble, is that when he started to really, really struggle, that was towards the end of the season. I mean, Dustin, in August, his ERA was 2.65. It wasn't horrible, but September, his ERA was 6.51. And that's when things start to fall apart in September. And now you have the postseason. And now, now Cade Horton's injured, and now we really need you. He has no time. He has no opportunity to reset, to take a break, to get a breather, to clear his head, nothing. And so maybe time away from the game is what he needed. And unfortunately, that came when the Cubs were eliminated in the NLDS. But gosh, it might just be something small, like he says. And when you take a look at what Shota's done in his career, I feel like the 2 years ago, his debut, Wrigley really played in favor of the pitchers. I think last year it was a little bit more neutral. It wasn't as much a pitcher's park that it was 2 years ago. And what Craig Consell said, the difference between success and failures, if you lose 1 or 2 miles per hour off your fastball, when you and I are talking, let's say you're driving a car, what's 1 or 2 miles per hour? It's nothing. 1 or 2 miles per hour off your fastball in MLB is huge. It's a huge difference. And so I really kind of feel like, I hope for Shota's sake that he really does have the season that is, that he can bounce back and really have a great season, because I just think I hate how it ended for him, considering how the first year and 3 quarters went for him, how beloved, the Showtime, the Chelsea dagger, the Hey Chicago, what do you get to say? Like, I don't want this to be the negativity. I want it to be positive again with Shota.
Yeah. Yeah. I want it to be positive too. I'm glad he's around. No doubt about that. I mean, I think it was the smart play.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to hurt. And here's the thing, Dustin, we didn't know that the Cubs were going to spend money and make deferred payments and some of those things. So when Shota got the $22 million on the qualifying offer, the thing that pissed people off is that we didn't know that they were going to go over the luxury tier 1 luxury tax, all those things. It's not a big deal if you were willing to do that. The bigger deal was if you weren't willing to pay a guy like Alex Bregman because of Shota Imanaga. They got Shota and they made the payment for the guy that they wanted. So it all worked out in the end. And again, if Shota can turn around and have a great year, all the better. Now, Dustin, Craig was asked an interesting question. If what the team he sees right now is the best defensive team he's ever coached.
We had a very good defensive team last year. I think it's largely the same group. We're going to be a good defensive team.
Last year, Dustin, was so impressive defensively. They had 3 Gold Glovers in Nico, PCA, and Ian Happ. They had 3 other players, finalists for the Gold Glove, in Matt Shaw, Carson Kelly, Matthew Boyd. They led the NL in both defensive runs saved with 84 and StatCast's fielding run value at 41. Do you think they won the Team Gold Glove award this year or last year? Do you think, from what you see right now, can this team be better defensively than it was last year?
I think that would be really difficult. And that's because of Bregman. I don't think he's going to be as good as third base was last year on defense, but he'll definitely be better on offense.
So I would at this point, I'm not sure. You got Carson Kelly back. I'm hoping, I feel like Michael Busch, there's more in there, and I'd like to hopefully see him kind of continue to move forward. I want to see a little bit more out of Michael Busch, but Michael Busch, I still think can go. I would like to see him be a Gold Glover one of these days. We know what we have in Nico Dansby. Alex Bregman's a very good defensive third baseman, and I think he's going to make a lot of the more routine plays a little bit easier than Matt Shaw did. I was disappointed in Kyle Tucker in right field last year defensively. And so I'm curious to see how Seiya Suzuki does. He did it pretty good when he was taking over right field afterwards. And then we know what Ian Happ and PCA are. So, you don't have to be better. You just got to be as good as last year and you're going to be okay. But Craig was asked about, postseason, very similar to what Jed was asked about. And here's what Craig said about expectations.
I think the important part of it is just, again, it's like a foundational piece of it. It's like it's in us. So that part of it is in us. That experience is in us. With a lot of this group, that experience is in us. That's the important part of it. It doesn't. I don't think it's going to do anything for us this year necessarily on the field, but for the group, it's kind of in us collectively as an experience. And I think that part's important.
So I think what Craig's saying on that one right there is that, look, just because they made the playoffs last year doesn't affect the regular season, right? Like, it's not going to automatically mean you're going to win, the Central or make it into the postseason, but just having that experience. We talked about PCA and Matt Shaw. Matt Shaw had a rough postseason. Those guys having the opportunity to get a taste of what postseason baseball. Again, if you've never been to a postseason baseball game, I don't want to say, you have to, but if you can all somehow make it, there's nothing like postseason baseball. There's nothing like a postseason atmosphere, and nothing can get you prepared for it actually having experience. And so I'm, no matter what happened, and again, 2016 early, as disappointing as 20 was where it ended, wanted it to keep and kind of dud get by just a finesse pitching, but it gave the experience for 2018. And they didn't panic. I feel in 2016 when things went down, I felt like they were confident. They had I'm really important, but I feel like it's going to be better. And our buddy Steve asks this question: if they finally win the Central but don't win a playoff round, Dustin, is that a failure?
Yes, it's a failure.
I would agree. And again, thinking here, foundationally, I think this team is ready. They're ready to take that next step. And yeah, if you ask anyone on that team, if you ask Craig Consell, if you ask the fans, I'm already hearing, I heard it on the afternoon show on 104.3 The Score, that, it's World Series or bust, right? This is it for this team, this core group of guys.
Well, you got a lot of guys coming off the books, right?
Yep. So this is it, World Series or bust. And Dustin, we're about to talk in segment 3 about injuries that teams are already facing.
Yes.
One of those key things is just staying healthy.
Big part of things, Crawly. You're listening to the Fly the W podcast, part of that Blue Wire network. And this is episode 337. Jed and Craig meet with the media. And of course, this is your opportunity to listen, your opportunity to download, review, subscribe. 5-star reviews, we'll take them. Email us, Crawly's Clubhouse, gmail.com. Don't forget, you can watch us on the Crawly's Clubhouse YouTube page. All right, Crawly, got some really interesting news here to share with the group.
Yeah, if you saw this one drop today, our old friend, Big Stick Nicky, 2 strikes there, Mr. Nick Castellanos, has been cut from the Phillies. I mean, he is canned from his deal, the $100 million man, no longer with the Phillies. And Dustin, if you remember last season, things started to go south in September, and an incident occurred with Nick Castellanos and Phillies skipper Rob Thompson, where, Nick's never been a good defensive player. He gets pulled from the game late. He's pissed off. He changes in the locker room, or not changes, but kind of gets he's not in full uniform, tucked in, all that stuff. He actually grabs a Presidente beer and comes back out to the dugout, had some words for Skipper Thompson, and it hasn't been good. And they've been trying to trade him all off season, and he was slated to, he was getting ready to come to camp, and the Phillies said, you know what? How about you don't come to camp?
I mean, how about you don't come to camp? Wow.
How about you don't come to camp? So his bags are packed. He's ready to go. And they tell him, don't show up. So basically at that point, nobody's going to sit there and trade. What are you going to get? A bag of balls? You're not going to get.
Well, why would? Because if you did do that, right? If you did do that, you would then, if you did do that, you would then have to take on his contract, correct?
You're going to have to, yeah, exactly.
Well, now he's a free agent. I mean, if they cut him, they're on the hook for whatever's owed to him.
Well, yes, a little bit like that. So the way that it works right there is that if there was a trade, the Phillies would have had to pay the most of the money anyway. They would have had to pay like 15, 12, depending on how much they paid would kind of affect what they would get back in return. But now that he has been released to cut, right now, he has $20 million left in that $100 million contract. The Phillies are on the hook for that sum minus the prorated portion of the league minimum paid for him by any other team that picks him up for even a portion of the season. So, whatever the league minimum is, just subtract that from the 20 million, but it's really going to be just like not even like 0.1% of what the Phillies are going to have to pay. Now, Castellanos, like we've talked about it defensively, it's never been good. He's even worse now. But there's a lot of people that are sitting there and being like, he can hit left-handed pitching. Even a team like the Cubs, would they, for league minimum?
Well, I suggested it this morning, Crawly. I said, why not? Why not take a flyer? He'd be a good guy on the bench. He does know how to play right field a little bit at Wrigley. Not saying he's good at it, but he at least knows how to. I'm not saying you want him out there for 100 games, Crawly. But I mean, I've seen worse right fielders in Wrigley Field.
Well, here's the issue that you do. If you do pick up Nick Castellanos, and he's going to want to play full time, he's not going to want. But again, beggars can't be choosers.
He's not in a position to say what he wants to do. He could also not have a locker. Okay, he could not have a locker, Crawly.
Now, I would tell you, Dustin, that for league minimum, there's going to be a lot of teams interested. So I think he is going to have more of a.
Should the Cubs be one of those teams? And does Nick Castellanos want to play for a contending ball club?
Those are all really good questions. The Marlins do not want him, they said, and they're desperately in need of a bat. So it is interesting that the question would be is why don't the Marlins want him? And what, do we have more details about what happened with Phillies? Is, he wasn't a bad clubhouse guy when he was in Chicago, but just keep one thing in mind, Dustin. If you do sign Nick Castellanos, guess who gets even less at bats? Matt Shaw.
Right.
So if you're going to get Nick Castellanos, then for me, I would say don't even start Matt Shaw in AAA. I don't even have him on the major league roster if that's what you're going to do. So that's why I really don't think Castellanos is really an option for the Cubs, but it is always interesting to kind of dream and think about it. Dustin, some injury news all over the place. How about a hamate bone? You know where that is, Dustin?
I do now, but tell the audience.
Right here at the bottom of your hand. And, a lot of times people will say, oh, it's better to have a broken bone than a soft tissue injury because those soft tissue injuries take forever to heal and broken bones usually heal quicker. The hamate bone for baseball players, though, is a real pain in the ass type of injury. And even though you can be back, okay, you're going to miss 4 to 6 weeks, the strength in your hand doesn't come back when you're ready to come back. A lot of times it's going to take months more. And guys that have that hamate injury, it feels like their power gets sapped. So when you take a look at some of these guys that have this hamate bone issue right now, Corbin Carroll of the Diamondbacks, probably one of, between him and Ketel Marte, 1-2, take your pick on the best players on that team. He suffered it during a live batting practice session, Dustin, 2 days ago. I mean, absolutely unbelievable. He had been scheduled to play for Team USA in the WBC. That's obviously going to prevent it. I mean, just absolutely unbelievable. Francisco Lindor, who's a classic on the WBC team for Team Puerto Rico, he's scheduled to undergo surgery to repair a stress reaction in a hamate bone in his left hand. He's supposed to be sidelined for 6 weeks. He may not be ready for opening day. And again, if he does play, how is the injury? And then Jackson Holiday from the Orioles. The Orioles have had a tremendous offseason, but he has a broken hamate bone in his right hand, and he will undergo a procedure to repair the fracture on today is when his surgery is. So, he's going to return after spring training. Again, you're talking a 5 to 6 weeks before that is healed. And then you have to, go and start getting your reps. But again, for a guy like Jackson Holiday to lose the power, I mean, that is just going to be unbelievable. Again, this is what you worry about when you talk about healthy. You may kind of have your ups and downs, whatever. Just get out of there healthy. When you hear a guy getting hit in the hand in batting practice, I mean, just unbelievable. There's a couple other injuries, Dustin, that are kind of going on. Also with the Mets, AJ Minter, he's about a month behind where he's supposed to be. Maybe he comes back in May. Josh Hader, Josh Hader from his time with the Brewers. He is now with the Rangers. He's had to pause his offseason throwing program because of arm soreness. So he resumed throwing yesterday, but he is behind schedule. The Blue Jays, who had a tremendous offseason, but they are in some trouble here. How about Anthony Santander? There's somebody that a lot of teams were interested in. He's going to undergo left shoulder surgery. He'll miss 5 to 6 months. Shane Bieber, he's going to be a little bit delayed. He's dealing with the right forearm fatigue. So a couple injuries there. Zach Wheeler, you remember the Phillies lost him. That really hurt them in the postseason. He underwent thoracic outlet decompression surgery. They took a rib out from him. Did you see that he kept the rib?
That's just so ridiculous. It's cringy almost, right? I mean, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Took out a rib, and I think it's in his closet
someday
right
this
now.
is going to be like some kind of an urban legend.
Well, he said that, he's not expected to be ready opening day, but Rob Thompson said not too far in the future. So again, Dustin, and of course we talked about Chris Bryant the last episode. It's just unbelievable. And then Lars Nootbaar, the Cardinals, he underwent surgery on both heels on October 7th. He's going to miss a couple weeks of the season, and that's kind of why he's not playing for Team Japan in the WBC, where he was he really kind of became a sensation in Japan. The Japanese weren't really familiar with him, and by the end, he was a guy that a lot of the Japanese fans really kind of fell in love with. So, no Nootbaar. So I know Cub fans aren't crying about that one.
No, no love lost there at all.
When we last were recording on Tuesday, Dustin, you were breaking the story, John Heyman, as the Cubs sign Kyle Wright to a deal. They take a flyer on Kyle Wright, and the Cubs aren't the only ones that like to kind of take flyers on these reclamation projects, right? You never know. If you remember Kyle Wright in 2022, he finished 10th in Cy Young voting, 3.19 ERA, 21 wins, Dustin, 21 wins, 174 strikeouts across 180 and a third innings pitched. So that comes out to almost a strikeout an inning. I mean, that's absolutely something that, Tommy Hotovy and Tyler Zombro and all these guys are just kind of saying, okay, let's see what happens. But Dustin, we talked about this a little bit in segment 1 about you worry about some of these guys that have injury history, right? Like if all of a sudden you have this great season, what happens the next season if you pitch more innings than you're used to and all of those things? And Wright is one of those guys that you kind of, worry about. There is that, after he had that amazing season in 2022, he just has been nothing but injured. 2023, 2024, 2025. It's all sorts of things, whether it's shoulder injuries. He had an oblique injury. He was with the Braves. They got rid of him. And then all of a sudden he went to the Royals after undergoing shoulder surgery. And okay, they knew they were going to miss him in the 23-24, but then he missed the entire 24 season rehabbing with injuries. And so here's a guy that you're looking at him and you say to yourself, okay, what do the Cubs see in him? He throws a curveball, a sinker, a four-seam, a changeup, a slider. The curve he throws 47% of the time, sinker 30%. Four-seam doesn't throw it that much. He is a big ground ball pitcher. And we talked about how good this Cubs team was last year defensively. This might, if he can be healthy and return to what he was, and even if he can get close to what he was, maybe you don't get a 20-game winner, but if he can be somewhat close to what he was in 2022, combine that with the defense and what he throws, the ground ball type pitcher throwing a curve and a sinker. This, again, you look for those diamond in the roughs, and 9 times out of 10, Dustin, they're not going to pan out. But all you need is that one time for somebody to kind of sit there and break through. Again, we didn't know Matt Boyd was going to do what Matthew Boyd did last season. Is Kyle Wright this year's Matthew Boyd? Now, Kyle, it's a similar type of question.
Well, I mean, I'm excited about it. It's definitely worth the flyer. There's no real risk involved here.
Absolutely. No risk, and it's not like you're depending on him. Because last year the Cubs,
no. Exactly right.
Last year the Cubs, if Matthew Boyd got injured last year, that was going to be a huge problem. He was healthy all season, and knock on wood, he stays healthy all of next season. But yeah, you don't need Wright. But if all of a sudden something comes up, you didn't know that you were going to, again, the fact that Cade Horton did what he did last year. Cubs aren't a postseason team without Cade Horton. There's going to be somebody, and we keep talking about it, who's going to be the guy that steps up and could potentially be a savior for this 2026 Cubs team.
All right, this last part that we're going to get into is very interesting to me because there has been so much talk this offseason. Locally, our guy, Bruce Levine, that Zach Gallen could be ending up with the Cubs. There's a market for Zach Gallen to become a Cub. Well, one of the suitors for Zach Gallen, the Baltimore Orioles, end up landing on Chris Bassett, 1 year, $18.5 million deal. So that means that there's potentially just 3 suitors for Zach Gallen, who is the highest rated player remaining on the Athletics top 50 free agent list.
He's close. He's the highest when you got Zach Allen at 21. And so
he's the highest one left, right?
Yep,
He's the
yep,
highest one
yep.
left. Highest valued player left on that list.
Yep. And so, I mean, I think it's just really coming down to, would the Cubs be willing to give him an opt-out after 1 year? That's really what it comes down to. Gallen's going to want an opt-out after 1 year, and the Cubs would be happy to do an opt-out after 2 years. But, we'll see. Like you said, he's running out of suitors. All pitchers and catchers have now reported. So now he's starting to fall behind schedule. And again, I've talked about for pitchers, especially, if you don't know the facility, if you don't know your teammates, your coaches, you want to get in there as early as possible. The more that this drags out, I think the worse it is for Zach Gallen. If I'm Zach Gallen and I have an opportunity to pitch for the Cubs and that defense behind him, and then parlay that. But again, he's going to have to stay with the Cubs for 2 years. I don't think they want to give him just an opt-out after 1 year. So that's the one I think.
Why is that though? Why is that? Why do you think they don't want to give him an opt-out after 1 year?
I think if you're gonna value him and give him money, you want him to at least be in here for 2 years. That's what you're going to want from him. You're not just going to want a one and done type thing.
Yeah, but I wouldn't lose him over that. That's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? I wouldn't let him, not get to where if you lose him to somebody else over that, I think that would be foolish.
If you didn't have the depth of pitching that you have, I would say yes. Because of the depth of pitching they have, it's not as big a deal. I think they want Zach Gallen. We don't know if there's going to be a 2027 season, but again, we talked about Boyd. Tyone and Imanaga all being pretty much free agents after this year. I think they want to make sure that they have someone like Zach Gallen who you could have as kind of a bridge guy once those guys leave. So that's why I think they want the 2 years and not just the one.
All right, Crawly, any other guys on that list to your liking, or would he be the one guy that you'd want the Cubs to invest in?
That's it. He's done. Other than that, I don't want Kopech. I don't want Giolito. I don't want Little. I don't want Scherzer. And Hoskins, absolutely not. So this is it. So I think, unless something happens and the Cubs can somehow get Zach Gallen, then I think the team that you have right now is the team that you're going to break camp with.
All right, Crawly, that is a wrap. Don't forget to listen, download, review, and subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. You can email us your thoughts and questions, crawlysclubhouse@gmail.com. You can watch us by subscribing to the Crawly's Clubhouse YouTube channel. Crawly, enjoy the news and notes and pictures and tweets and Instagrams and whatever else comes out of Arizona over the next couple of days. You and I will get back at it after the long weekend. You're getting Monday off, I'm assuming?
I am. Yep. So I'm going to enjoy it. And I'm going to be, like you said, kind of following all my guys like, Rich and John and all those great photographers and Scotty Chags and all those guys taking pictures and video out there. I'm excited. Next step, position players report on Monday. We're almost there. And by a week from today, Dustin, we got some games. Go Cubs.
It's all over.